It's time for Atomic Monsoon from Voice America with your hosts, Psycho Andy.
But he was just sitting there at the heavy metal booth, just chilling out, not doing anything.
Josh.
The whole, Pikachu-looking thing with the Marilyn Monroe face and it just absolutely killed me.
And Jedi Stephanie.
They all come from different walks of life, but they all enjoy the passion of whacking each other with glow sticks.
And now, broadcasting from the Voice America headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, it's Atomic Monsoon.
4.
Okay, are you ready?
3, 2,
Open wide.
1. Shoryuken!
Welcome back to Atomic Monsoon on VoiceAmerica.com. What's going on, everybody? Hi, I'm Psycho Andy.
And I'm Craig.
Welcome to the most entertaining 50 to 55 minutes of your pop culture week. It's Atomic Monsoon for VoiceAmerica.com. How's it going, Craig?
It's going great. 50 to 50, that's a very tight window. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah. Well, we, in theory, we're live sometimes. And so our shows run an hour and we get some ad breaks afterwards. So,
cool.
Yeah. Before we get started, I just real quick want to thank our friends at Def M Records who normally do our intro. But this week I want to thank Capcom for not suing us.
Give it up for Armored Armadillo. Let's go.
Yeah. That song's so good.
That's exactly why it was chosen. It was just high energy, fast paced. It gets you right in the mood. Sets the tone for the show immediately.
Absolutely. Stephanie and Josh aren't able to join me due to scheduling conflicts. School started back up, so Stephanie's teaching and Josh is recording other people's shows. So it's just me and Jimmy Woods here.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. The alter ego. One of my 17,000 alter egos.
As long as the evil version doesn't come out, I think we'll be okay.
No, he's dead.
Okay.
Evil Craig's dead.
Okay.
Evil Craig's
That's
dead, yes.
Yes. So, Craig, hi. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing great, man. Cannot complain at all. I'm loving life right now. Had a great stream this morning. Got to hang out, and now we're just rocking and rolling. You're just rocking and rolling, man. Enjoying life. Yeah,
I caught a little bit of the stream, so that was super fun. I've never seen the game Fall Guys before, but I might need to look.
It's the best. It's the best game. It's not Fall Guys. It's not a game. It's the best game. It's the game. The game was made for me. Like, good God! Like, if there was ever a game that was made for me, it's that game.
That's
the best.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's so good when you find those games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And right now, just leaving and doing my own thing. Like, I cannot ask for a better game to start my channel with. Like, totally fortunate, lucky. Was like, wow, this is perfect for me. This is the best. So, yeah, stoked.
Yeah. And your wife and kids are good. Everyone's healthy and safe right now with everything going on in the world.
Andy, my wife died. No,
what?
no, she's no.
Oh,
No, my wife. Everyone's great. Sorry, I just thought.
Wow.
No. I listen. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I just imagined you kind of like sweating bullets immediately because I've been in those situations where you like step in a bear trap like that and, and you're just like,
I was all set to just be like, well, there's a big chunk of the intro we got to edit out.
No, that's awesome. No, everything's great, man. Everything's awesome. Cannot complain at all.
Oh, so glad to hear that. Cool, man. Cool. Well, okay. So Craig, CraigSkitz is here. That's who I'm talking with. CraigSkitz, you just started a podcast a few weeks ago. What do you got? 4 or 5 episodes out now?
Depending on the school's lives, 5, maybe 6 actually, because I did a live one with Gus from Rooster Teeth a couple days ago, one of the co-founders of Rooster Teeth, and I just kind of did a little experiment with that being live, and I don't know if that's going to count as canon or not, but but I'm just testing out. Like, the show's so early that I'm just kind of throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks, and we'll see. We'll see if I go the live format or the edited content side of it. But 4 or 5 episodes. It's been interesting. A lot of people have been asking about me getting back to podcasting for a while, and I thought it's just something I wanted to do, something I felt I needed to do. So I'm excited to be doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was a regular Sidescrollers listener back in.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Not at all. No, man, it was every week. It was, Sidescrollers was oftentimes multiple times in the week. Just I had at the time I had an hour commute to work, so you guys made it a lot shorter. So thank you.
Well, thank you, man. Sidescrollers was interesting because it's what ScrewAttack started with this podcast, and And the whole idea was, it was like, well, we're going to talk about video games. We're going to do this radio show about video games because nobody's talking about video games. Then we found out later there's these things called podcasts, and everybody's doing a podcast, even like 2006, right? Like, or not everybody, but it was becoming a thing. At least there was people out there doing them. And the whole idea was, I had just finished interning at a radio station. And for me, having never listened to a podcast before, but doing a podcast, my natural thought was to produce it like a radio show, and to have a lot of production in it, and have a intro and break it down into segments, and go for 30 to 45 minutes and treat it like an hour show. And it was fun, man. It was really fun. The different casts that we had all added something different to it. So it was a great way for like the hardcore of the hardcore to really latch on and get to know everybody.
Yeah. I always felt like Sidescrollers was kind of the heart of ScrewAttack. I guess there might be people who are listening to this because they're Atomic Monsoon fans who don't know about ScrewAttack at all. So we should probably introduce that as well. Craig ran a video game comedy site, I guess. It was fun in video games was your soul of was ScrewAttack.
Yeah. I would say ScrewAttack. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I would love to hear you describe it as opposed to me.
That's fair. Like I know you said, the purpose of ScrewAttack is video games and fun. And as long as you were in charge, that's what it was going to be. It was it was pretty much daily videos. A lot of them were kind of bite-sized, which I still appreciate. A lot of things were 5 minutes or less. So it wasn't a huge time investment every day. It was, hey, what are they doing? What are they doing today? It was almost every day there was something new. The Angry Video Game Nerd comes out of ScrewAttack. Lots of people come out of ScrewAttack, actually. Death Battle, which is now over with Rooster Teeth, comes out of ScrewAttack. So much.
It's definitely a laundry list of folks who, Peanut Butter Gamer, Gerard the Completionist, Matt Pat from Game Theory. They all got their start on ScrewAttack.
I don't know if Movie Bob got his start at ScrewAttack, but I know Movie Bob was the game over thinker for a long time there as well.
Yeah, so Movie Bob was actually a community member, and he won a contest we had called My Vids Don't Suck, where the whole premise of the contest was to have a tournament between community members and the content that they produce, and then the winner would be a feature on the site, and that's how Movie Bob became a thing.
Nice. Yeah, and he's been very successful coming out of that. So yeah, lots of influence from ScrewAttack. Yeah,
it's been pretty cool. It's been neat to see, and now that I've left GameAttack and kind of started off and done my own thing, I've seen a lot of people come back who I hadn't seen in like literally years, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you back doing this." And I'm like, "Well, I never really left doing it, but hey, cool, good to see you." A lot of people have been talking about ScrewAttack, and there's kind of like this little, I don't know, emotional renaissance, going on, at least for me, to kind of, it's kind of like nostalgia overload for just, people talking about ScrewAttack and kind of what it meant to them. And that's really neat for me.
Yeah, for sure. I know, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, streaming gaming stuff is not my favorite way to consume video games, right? So, and I know that's kind of what the majority of GameAttack was, which you started after ScrewAttack was bought and basically merged with Rooster Teeth. And like I watched occasionally, but hey, if I'm gonna sit down and watch you guys play a game for an hour, I'd rather just play the game myself personally.
Sure.
And so when I saw you recently did an interview with James on Cinemassacre about UHF, which is an incredibly underrated movie.
It's the best.
Yeah. It's I've got my entire Weird Al discography right in front of me right now. Completely by coincidence. And then, on the suggested videos, it was like, hey, the CraigSkitz podcast, you watch him talk with James Moore. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And that was it. Like it must have been just a couple days after you had posted that, because I was immediately like, well, I'm going to subscribe to this on my phone because I'm an audio guy, right? I work for a radio network. So, and that Tommy Tallarico one dropped a couple days later. And I was like, well, this is great. That is an amazing interview, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah. For anyone listening, if nothing else, you should go check out the CraigSkitz podcast, SKITZ, and listen to episode 2 with Tommy Tallarico. It was super inspiring. Like I was already some side project stuff while I was listening to that, but I was like, I need to do this better.
Tommy's really, really a great dude. I'll tell you this: there's been one theme across every single episode that I've recorded, and every single person that I've spoke to, they talk about how they just grinded and worked to get to where they were, and nothing has been handed to them. I have upcoming episodes with Greg Miller from Kind of Funny. I have an episode with I'd say he's an up and comer, but he's massive. He has 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Named Scott the Waz, so I interviewed Scott, and really it's all about grinding. Like Scott's 23 years old and he's been doing it for 10 years. You know,
jeez, I didn't realize he was that young because he's been around forever.
Scott got to start on ScrewAttack.
How about that?
Right, and it's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. So. It's really bizarre. Like it's really it's bizarre to see the list of people who have had it, but also the reoccurring theme of just grinding and working and finding a way to make it work and having a goal and going for that goal and keep going till you don't hit it. It's pretty awesome. But Tommy is he's a great dude, works his ass off, and he will find a way to make things work, even when people say it won't.
Yeah. And I've been to Video Games Live. That's a tremendous show. Like the production on that is great.
That's great.
And I'm a big fan of the Earthworm Jim games, and I keep their soundtracks in my library all the time. So I've been a big fan of him for forever too. Okay. So, but before you did ScrewAttack, you were known as a bit of an athlete, right? You played slam ball.
Yeah. It's weird. Slam ball was this like made-for-TV sport in the early 2000s. I played. It was 2 seasons. I played in. There was a 2002 season and a 2003 season, which is now 17 years ago.
Yeah.
So I played slam ball, and that was my first real taste of the internet, of what the internet could do. Because
interesting.
So we would watch wrestling. WWF wrestling,
as we all did in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yeah,
right. And then immediately after wrestling, premiered this new show called Slam Ball, and I played basketball, and I love NBA Jam, and for me it was real life NBA Jam, and I was like, oh my gosh,
pretty accurate, yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, the only thing you just can't catch fire in it, Right. But you're doing these superhuman dunks, these trampolines and stuff, and I remember watching the premiere of it, and I was standing in Tom's house, TJ's house, and I was like, I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that. So I spent the first thing I did was I found a place that had a big trampoline like that. That I guess the closest I could guess what a trampoline would be like that. And I went to probably 6 or 7 local gymnastics places here in Texas, in Dallas, and was like, hey, I want to train for this slam ball thing. Can I come and jump on your trampoline? And so I went into this place, and they let me jump on their trampoline for free for nothing. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 times a week, I'd go up there and I'd train, and it was one of those things where I knew I was training for this sport, but I didn't know how I was going to get a tryout for this sport. So all the while this is happening, I'm on the message board for slam ball, and I'm talking about, man, I really want to try out, blah 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 blah. And occasionally the guy who ran slam ball, his name was Mason Gordon, and he would occasionally pop in. And one day, I don't know, 3 months before tryouts, he goes, hey, I'm going to offer one person from this message board a tryout, just one person. And I'd been really active in the community because I was just so passionate about it. And everyone was like, oh, it's got to be Craig. It's Craig. Craig, CraigSkitz actually was my username. He's it's got to be Craig. So sure enough, after campaigning and doing my best to get this guy's attention, he's like, okay, Craig, you can come out. So that was the first thing. I didn't know who Mason Gordon was, but I was introduced to him via message board and campaigning to be the guy who was going to get this tryout. And so I got this tryout. I was the last pick of the entire draft, last player chosen. Yeah, dude. It's funny because there was I legitimately thought I was the best player there, and I was am better than everybody here on a trampoline. I feel like I should be the number one pick. And like when they announced the number, like, and you got to remember, there are guys who played like high Division I college basketball, right? Like we're talking like, you know, USC, Southern California. We're talking Georgia Tech. One of my teammates was the ACC Freshman of the Year at Georgia Tech, and a few years later, Chris Bosch was the ACC Freshman of the Year. So like, if he had just been like, you know, just a few years later, right? Like he would have gone to the pros, but it like in that time that he played college basketball, it wasn't like a one and done type of thing. It was you stayed for 3-4 years. So the guys I played with were really good, but I thought I was like the best because this is like between basketball and trampolines and all this stuff. Like I was like, I'm convinced. So they were producing this like documentary about slam ball prior to that was going to release prior to episode 1, and I was one of the people they were following around because it's a story about this kid who used the internet to get this tryout and blah 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 blah, and like you know, he's this fan turned into a player, and it's like this great story, right? But I legitimately think I'm like the best player there. So by the time the draft gets done and I'm the last player picked, they stick this camera in my face and they're like, "Well, man, how do you feel?" And they're expecting me to be like, "Oh, I'm so happy to be here, hooray!" You know. And in actuality, I'm like, "There's no way I should have been the last player picked," you know. And I'm like totally salty about it. And I'm like, I'm better than all these guys, and I went like straight heel on them, and it totally ruined like this whole like inspirational story about this underdog who's coming from the internet, and it ruined the story they wanted to tell. So I did not make the documentary.
Oh no.
Oh no. Probably a good reason, because like, you know, up until then I was like, you know, I'm happy to be here because I'm, you know, I was trying to be humble, right? And it was just one of those things where it just like it hit me, and I was so salty and so mad because like I'm better than all these guys. I can't believe it.
Oh, well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you definitely were a highlight in the league, which I can only, I mean, I know I watched a few slam ball games when it was on. I didn't watch every single one of them. Honestly, I don't remember you from that. I just know you talked about it. So
I legitimately, I don't think one of our games made it on TV. Actually, like
wow.
I think one of our teams did, one of our team games, but I don't think I played in that game that made it on TV. So like all the footage of me on TV, like all the footage you've seen is from whether it was on YouTube or whatever, was footage that was taken from other games.
Crazy. Okay.
So like really what happened was, like I said, I was the last pick in this draft, and the season was only 10 games long. So like halfway through the season, like our team sucks. Like I think we're like 1-4, maybe 0-5.
Oh,
and that guy from Georgia Tech is like, "Hey, like you need to let Craig play. Like let him play," to the coach. And the coach is like, "Oh, okay." So he puts me in the starting lineup, and I go off for like 18 points that game. And like I'm dominant in the game. And like 18 points in a game to like in a game of like 45, you know, like I scored like a third of our points.
Right.
So I started the rest of the season, and I played pretty well like the second half, and it was good. Yeah. But like, I think, you say I was like a highlight of the league. I wasn't while I was playing. Okay. But like afterwards with ScrewAttack and everything, I think it helped get the word out a little bit more about slam ball for sure. So it was neat. It was neat.
Yeah. Because I was going to say the Slam Ball YouTube channel has a couple highlight videos of you, and like there's a couple highlight videos of some of the other players, but that's it. Like it's I don't know.
No, it's cool. It's neat, and they kind of saw what ScrewAttack was doing and stuff. And it's funny because probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, I actually had a conversation with Mason, and the guy who ran Slam Ball, still is running Slam Ball, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Apparently, it's a thing over in Japan or China. He was like, "Do you want to buy a team?" I'm like, "What?" I was like, "I want to buy a team." So
yeah, that's awesome.
Player to owner. So
yeah. I mean, stranger things have happened, right?
Yeah, right.
So speaking of strange things and transitions, how do you go from Slam Ball to ScrewAttack?
That's a great question. So I finished school. I went to the University of North Texas, had a degree in broadcast journalism. Well, actually, I had a degree in it was broadcast journalism, but I started with a regular degree in like reading, your traditional journalism.
Sure, right.
Journalism. And I realized that I didn't like to read or write. And being a journalism major, that's not a good thing.
Right. That's most of that job.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where the video game aspect of it happened. I finished with the degree. I had like really two passions, like sports and video games, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to call like play-by-play for basketball or baseball or football or whatever. Sure. And that's what I wanted to do. But it was one of those things where it's like I didn't want to move to Pawtucket, Rhode Island and call AA baseball games and hope somebody calling AAA baseball games died so I can move up the ladder. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
nothing against the great state of Rhode Island where my boss is from. But.
And Pawtucket, like I hear great things. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't want to. I didn't want to like. I didn't want to be patient enough for that.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I talk about grinding and stuff. Like I figured I could start something over and start something by myself, and that's where the idea of the podcast started. Mm-hmm. And then ScrewAttack became a thing. So that's pretty much how we got there.
Okay. Yeah. And I know there's more of the origin of ScrewAttack. A lot of places. Like I know any of your fans that are coming over listening are gonna know a lot of that stuff. And for anyone, the Atomic Monsoon listeners, Craig did a wonderful interview with Hats Off Media on YouTube a couple months ago that went over a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I don't really feel like I don't want to double up on. Like just go watch that because you guys nailed it.
Yeah, that's probably the most in-depth interview I think I've ever done on just the whole backstory of ScrewAttack and everything like that. It was fun. Good story.
Yeah. No, it was super cool. And then between that and then like when Rooster Teeth retired the ScrewAttack name, you did a stream that's on the GameAttack YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Where like, and I watched a lot of stuff in preparation for this, and I was like, oh man, I'm not going to ask a bunch of the questions I was going to ask now because like the answers are out there.
But you can ask whatever you want, man. Whatever you want. That's good.
All right. Well, then, where did the name G1 come from?
Yeah, so in radio, there's I'm sure. Are you familiar with the term P1?
Not outside of Player One, no.
Yeah, so there's a term called P1, which, to my knowledge, is when you look at your radio dial, specifically in the car. Usually there are presets for preset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, or however many presets you have in your car. And there's a term called P1 for placement 1. Like people want to be placement 1 on your preset dial. And that is in like an avid listener. And I kind of took that and swung it and called it G1 for gaming. And the G in G1 doesn't mean anything. I just figured gaming, so I just called them G1. So that's really it. I mean, that's really just a radio term that I kind of twisted a little bit and turned it into some sort of gamer thing. And it was interesting because back then you didn't like everyone was just a viewer. Right? Or a listener. Giving community ownership was something I really felt was important, and that's why the term G1 became a thing. And now everybody does that, so it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see. I mean, I'm not going to say I was the first one to do that, but it was definitely neat to see that trickle down effect from other relationships and giving communities ownership. It was pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah. I it's one of those things like you've talked about the origin of ScrewAttack, coming from Metroid, obviously, and ScrewAttack being the best power up in the game, and that's why you picked that. But I don't think I'd ever heard the origin of G1, so I've always wondered about that.
There you go.
There I go. Speaking of the name ScrewAttack, any regrets later on choosing ScrewAttack as the site name?
Oh, that's funny. No. I mean there was. When you're trying to register a business, right. And especially on a time online where they go, what do you do? You can say, well, what's your business name? Oh, ScrewAttack Entertainment. And what do you do? Well, we do online video.
Right.
So you get a lot of funny names that way.
Raised eyebrows, yeah.
Right. But not really. No. For me, I actually really like the name because for those who are really into gaming, they know what it's about.
Right.
And those who aren't. Don't. They're the ones who raise the eyebrows. So it almost made it more inclusive, right?
Okay.
And more of a niche gaming thing, which was cool. So, we initially, we talked about ScrewAttack was sheer. The weird thing about it was ScrewAttack was just sheer coincidence. I mean, it could have been anything. When we were looking for domain names, and I mean, we looked at all sorts of things. We looked at, we were just looking for like powerful power-ups in video games, like the most that was the whole idea. We looked for like Master Sword and redring.com, like Red Ring in Zelda is like the most powerful ring, which oddly enough, like had we chosen Red Ring, that would have meant something totally different during the Xbox 360 era, right?
Which was like right after you guys started, yeah.
Yeah, right. And actually probably would have been huge for like traffic because people like, oh, how do I fix my Red Ring?
Probably true, yeah.
But yeah, ScrewAttack, we literally just went on GoDaddy. It was like, oh, well, we would just go down the list. And I remember someone said, well, let's check ScrewAttack. And we were just like, no, that's got to be chosen. I mean, it's such a known power up. It has to be chosen. And it wasn't. It was like, there it is. ScrewAttack, right. So yeah, I wish I could tell you there was a lot more thought put into it, but there wasn't,
Yeah, I get that. I usually just go by my first name on Atomic Monsoon, but I've been Psycho Andy since 1995. And literally that started because I was an assistant volunteer at a summer camp one summer. And there were so many of us that I kind of got stuck at the arts and crafts booth for the first half. Uh-huh. And the guy that ran that was Crazy Ed. And one day he was like, well, if I'm going to be Crazy Ed, you need a nickname too. Right. And I was like, well, I don't want to do Crazy Andy because that's your name. And so we just kind of went down all of the synonyms for crazy. And we decided Psycho Andy sounded the best. And then a few years later, when, I got it online, it was like, well, this is the name I'm going to pick because it's, it's me. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm not actually crazy. But it'll keep away, strange people. So yeah, I get it. Sure. Like you just kind of start, hey, we want to do something like this. And you go down that list and you're like, well, this is the one that worked. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, you just kind of roll with it. So yeah. But honestly, I think it turned out to be the best, the best possible name it could have been. It worked in so many ways. Yeah. And I was really happy with it. Yeah. So I guess transitioning off of that into other names, right? So ScrewAttack started in 2006, but by 2009, you guys were big enough that you had your own convention, the ScrewAttack Gaming Convention, SGC. What was starting that like? It was fun. I remember coming back from, I think the first year we had SGC was 2008. Okay. But before that, we had an event called the Iron Man of Gaming. Yes. And the Iron Man of Gaming was a tournament that was built around finding like the best overall gamer, right? Man, I let me tell you, Craig, I wanted to compete in the Iron Man so bad, but I'm horrible at first-person shooters. Right. And I knew that like between that and the couple of other games that you guys kept announcing, it was like, well, first of all, I can't travel because I was broke. And secondly, like even if I could, it was like, there's no way that I'm going to be the best overall gamer here. So. Yeah, but I always thought the concept of just, hey, it's every genre, every generation, every platform. Right. Who is the best of the best? Right. Like there were a lot of guys who were really good at Halo, and they're like, "You're the best gamer in the world." I'm like, really? Can they beat Mario 2? Right. So that was the whole premise of it, and I wanted to find the best overall gamer. And what we saw was, so we did the Iron Man of Gaming, and it was a really fun event. And then I went to PAX that year. And I remember going to PAX and coming back and just being on the plane, sitting there thinking, like, we can do that. Like, we can absolutely do that. Now, we can't do it for 30,000 people right now, but we can do that. We can do that and do it our own way. Mm-hmm. And so I came back and I was like, I remember Corey and Jose and Destin are there. And I'm like, hey, we're going to do a convention. And they're like, what? So we sat down and kind of everybody got on board, and we sat down and we started thinking of names and stuff. And eventually, like the name ScrewAttack was the thing that was scary because we didn't want to use the term ScrewAttack because mamas didn't want to send their kid to a convention called ScrewAttack, Right. So that's why we went with SGC with the ScrewAttack being the subtitle. But getting us started was crazy. The first one, I ran the event with the help from everybody, and I think that's the thing about SGC that people really have nostalgia for those who went to it, because SGC grew from the first year it was 1,000 people, and the last year we did it, it was the largest event in North Texas. We had 15,000 people go to it its final year. Jeez. And it had caught on. Like it was one of those things where, man, it was
was cool. It was a really cool event, and it had a really neat vibe, and it was really welcoming. It was really neat. So, but the thing about it, the people remember about SGC, those who went, was that like it was us running the event. Right. Like it was like Ben was running camera, Nick was on stage with camera. I'm running the event while emceeing, intros for things and running programming. And when somebody had a question, they came to me, as opposed to event organizer. We didn't have that. And as one of and it's not that we didn't want that; it's we didn't know that those things existed. So we just did them. Yeah. I think that was the crazy thing. We just did them. We started SGC. We started doing video games. We bought a video game store. Like we did all these things just because why not? Let's just do them. Let's just go and give it a go.
No, I mean, listen, if you have the resources, why not? Right? Like,
well, we didn't. That's the thing. That was the most fascinating thing about it was like SGC never made a profit. SGC lost money every single year we did it.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah.
Events are just so expensive to do, but it was also some of the most rewarding times. Like I remember getting done with SGC. I think it's probably 2013 up in maybe it was 12. I don't know, but I think it was last one ended up in Frisco and Dallas. And I remember getting done and just like we're all just zonked, but we're crying. Like we're just exhausted, but we're so happy. We were so happy with what we had made and what we created, and everyone worked their butt off the entire weekend, but you got done, and then just this flood of like, we did it, rushes over you. And that was really, really cool. SGC every year was like this immense pride. It was more of a prideful thing than anything else. And getting it started was no different. It was just, figure it out. How do you do this? I don't know. How does this work? I don't know. Figure it out, and that was like the mantra. Let's figure it out,
Yeah. No, and I mean that's how I do a lot of things, right? Even Atomic Monsoon was just like, how do we do this? I don't know. What are we gonna make the show about? I don't know. Let's figure it out. How do you get guests? I guess just call them and ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You reach out, you email them, you say, hi, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I think that's something that kind of my life. My life mantra. I love the Nike slogan of "Just do it." I think it's the best slogan in the world. But mine is just a little takeoff of that. Is just go get it. Just go get it. Go get it. Whatever it is you want, whatever your it is, go get it. And sometimes you may not even know what it is, but you'll find it along the way.
Yeah.
So you just gotta go get it. Whatever it is.
I mean, like your options are you can try and go get it, and if you fail, at least you tried to go get it, and okay. But then if you didn't, you're just in the same boat you were before, or you don't go get it, and then you always wonder if you could.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like
and
you get one shot of this.
Yeah,
one shot.
So why not try at the very least?
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, where do I transition from there?
Wherever you want to go.
That's a good question. You know what? Let's talk about my favorite segment, your favorite segment, and everybody in the world's favorite segment. Hard news. So you guys it was like a 5-minute video every day, in addition to the other daily stuff you're doing. It's like a 5-minute video every day that was all just, here's the big hits in gaming today.
Right.
So obviously Hard News started as a segment on Sidescrollers, maybe not obviously 10 years later, but what was the impetus of making Hard News its own show? What did that take? And why did it end? Because at one point it was just like, hey, we're not doing Hard News anymore.
Yeah, really good questions across the board. So Hard News was, it started based off of, I felt like a need. Nobody was doing a daily news show at that time. It was literally the first video game news show on the internet. First daily video game news show on the internet. So it was something I had been thinking about. Like, how do we do this? What can we do for a video game show, some sort of news show? And at the time, we were working with game trailers, and we were producing, vaults and top tens and these different series for GT. And GT had a user section, and just like as luck would have it, I saw Destin in the user section, and he was producing a show. He had done like 2 episodes of a show called The Daily DL, which was a show he was literally doing in his parents' basement. And it was he was like really flat, like uninspired voice. It was like, "Hey, I'm Destin. This is the Daily DL." You know, it's like it's kind of like that brother in Everyone Loves Raymond. You know, and it was kind of like his tone. So he was doing the show, and it was kind of what I saw for this. And I was like, so I reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, man, I like what you're doing. Do you want to keep like?" It was kind of like in UHF where he goes, "Hey, can you do that every day, Stanley?" You know,
right.
like, right. And that's kind of what it was like. It was like, "Do you think you can do that every day? Do you want to work for us? Okay, cool. How about you come up?" So I flew him down, and we did like a couple tests, and I was like, well, how'd it go? You know, and like, how'd that feel? And that's kind of how it all started. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And Destin's our guy. And then from there, I mean, I remember doing the tests, and the very first episodes of Hard News, Destin was very, like, he'd never really been on camera in front of lights and stuff. And, you know, I remember him just being really, like, tense. And I remember filming it, and I was like, something's missing. Like, you need some sort of hook, right? You need something to bring in. That's where the point came from. So I remember being like, I was like, point to the camera, and we'll zoom in. And, like, that'll be the thing. That'll be your thing. So, yeah, we started Hard News, and it went great. It was, you know, saw a lot of imitators after that. But Destin was excellent at his job, and it still is. I mean, he's moved on to IGN now, and he's like running the show at IGN, and like, I'm so proud of Destin. And so he took that, and that was like a springboard, which was so great. So after producing Hard News for, I don't know, seven years or so, I mean, I think at the time we'd split off Hard News from ScrewAttack to a separate ScrewAttack news channel.
That might be right. Yeah.
And so we did that. And at that time, we had been acquired by Fullscreen, and they had acquired Rooster Teeth. And Rooster Teeth had a show called No, which was you know, their version of Hard News. Right. And I was just trying, like, honestly, like, this is really dumb. Like, this is really dumb. I mean, I was just trying to be like good company guy, right? I was like, well, you know, they have this show called The No, and we have this show called Hard News, and they're pretty much the same thing. So how about we'll stop our show so they're not competing with each other, right? Nobody asked me to do that. It was just like something I did, and I think, well, we can use those resources in another way, and, you know, probably for whatever show, the best ever, or, you know, whatever show A, B, C, or D that we were doing at the time. So we did, and it ended, and you know, honestly, I think it was also time. It was kind of time for it to go. You know, you produce a show online for that long, it's really hard, and YouTube was changing. You know, you talked about how early on the idea of, like, these, you know, we'd produce something original every freaking day. That was our tagline, something, you know. And the reason all of our videos were short was because we were producing something original every freaking day, right? They were 2 to 3, 4, 5 minutes, right? And the idea of getting Hard News out on top of that was just stupid, right? Okay. But we did it. But the internet was changing, YouTube was changing, and a 3-minute wrap up of the video game news was no longer what the audience wanted. You know, the audience was wanting 5 to 10 minutes. And they wanted a little more in-depth analysis, right? So for us, it was like, okay, it's time. You know, it's time to call it a day. And I loved Hard News. I think it has its place in, you know, in the pantheon of gaming news shows and stuff. But I think it was about time.
Okay, yeah. Not to contradict everything you just said, but man, I really am kind of bummed that YouTube has gone to closer to 10 to 20-minute videos for everything. It feels like. I really liked just getting a bunch of short videos more frequently, you know, and I missed that, you know, I missed it about ScrewAttack. I missed it about, you know, even, you know, James, right? Like, a lot of his early videos were 5-10 minutes, and some of them ended up being, you know, close to 45 minutes. And it's like, man, it's cool that he's able to do that, but I miss the short ones.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority, you know, maybe the rest of the world wants the longer stuff, and I'm the one kid that's holding on to, you know, that early internet nostalgia. But I don't know. I miss, you know, the 2-minute video game vaults. I miss the 5 minutes of Hard News. I miss all those shorter, quicker hits.
Yeah.
And especially now that nobody's doing it, you know, I think that I overheard you and Nick, and I'm one of your patrons, so I know you mentioned on Patreon.
Thank you.
Potentially bringing some of those back. You're welcome. I'm all for it. I especially know that the ScrewAttack Archive YouTube channel has started up. Do you know who that is? Do you know who's doing that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Legitimately, I have no idea who it is. They haven't reached out to me. I haven't reached out to them. I watch it. I think it's great. It's super fun to watch. And I think it's necessary. I think, because right now there's legitimately, if you can't find the ScrewAttack stuff anywhere, it was taken off from Rooster Teeth. So
So thank you to whoever's doing the ScrewAttack Archive.
Right.
I love it. You mentioned it in one of your earlier podcasts, one of your early of the 4 podcasts, and I immediately was like, what is this? And I went over and checked and watched one of the eating challenges and hit subscribe, and I was like, yep. You know what, in this messed up world we're in right now, like, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm clinging to nostalgia for comfort. And there's a lot of like, man, I watched this once 10, 12, 15 years ago, and I remember it, be it clips of the week or the eating challenges or the vaults or anything. Like, I'm so glad that somebody preserved those and is resharing them. So
whoever it is, good on you.
Yeah. So if you want to see the stuff that we're talking about that Craig used to do,
right.
Head over to ScrewAttack Archive on YouTube. So you said that this is all the stuff's basically gone because Fullscreen merged ScrewAttack with Rooster Teeth, and I know you've said that you would sell to Fullscreen 100 times out of 100 times, and you don't regret that decision. Is there any part of you that regrets not selling it, but letting other people be your boss?
I think it's one of the same, right? I think anytime you sell, you're going to have. You got to have, other people be your boss. With that said, I mean, that was a very hard thing for me. Right. I struggled with that immensely. I've said before, I went from, having no bosses to having like literally 7. I remember having to get like 7 sign-offs on shows to be produced at like RT, and they have their way of doing things, and cool, good for them. Like they've obviously seen a lot of success. Just for me, it didn't mesh with me. That's kind of why I'm doing my own thing now. I want to, do things how I want to do them. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's just one of those things that for me, I was just ready to be done with Rooster Teeth as fast as I possibly could, because for me, the writing was on the wall with, my history there and what was going on. So, do I have a regret of, having someone else's boss? I think they're one and the same. But with that said, it wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't easy.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, like, nothing against Rooster Teeth or Fullscreen. Like, they're their own businesses. They run their business their way. And like you said, like you've said before, everyone at ScrewAttack got a raise. Everyone got insurance. Everyone else seems to make it okay. And I mean, Ben and Chad and Sam and Brian and Nick are all working with those guys, and they're all doing okay. And, like you mentioned earlier, Destin's at IGN, and so many, like all the ScrewAttack crew has moved on to something bigger, it feels like.
Yeah, they all landed on their feet.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah. That's huge. That's like such an important thing for me personally. I think there's this perception of that ScrewAttack was this like, that ScrewAttack was just raking in money, and that is not the case. There's a reason why we had so many staff. It's because nobody was making money. Nobody was making any money, right? So, for us, that was one of those things where, nobody's really making any money, and for me, I wanted to make sure that it was that for us. I've told the story before, but we had an opportunity with Game Trailers. They came to us and was like, "Hey, we would love to sign you to a 5-year contract, and we're gonna pay you $250,000 a year to produce your vaults, your top 10s for us, and it'll be regular schedule. You don't have to worry about things like this, but it has to be exclusive, right?
Right.
And for us, it was like, okay, so we can be. It was a 5-year contract, and on the server's like, oh man, $250,000 a year. Yeah, it sounds awesome, but not when you're paying like 8 people, right?
Right.
Right. So
that goes away pretty quick.
Goes away very fast, right?
Yeah.
So, if it's like me, I'm like, where do I sign up? Like I'll take a $250,000, but it's not. So I remember we sat down and we went to a Wendy's, and I told the guys, like, this is an opportunity we have right here. This opportunity is this deal with game trailers. We could do this, or we can go all in and try to sell the company. And everybody was like, let's do it. Let's sell the company. Because everyone was getting older. Everyone needed insurance,
Right.
Everyone needed to make a little more money. And that was like the big driving force behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I've mentioned on this show a couple times before, but Craig, I know you don't know. My family used to own a comic book store. We ran it for just shy of 3 years, and I loved it. But running that business was hard. Was just brutal.
Yeah.
Again, we weren't making a ton of money, right? Like we all had side jobs as well. And when the time came, it was like, hey, it's not a hard decision to decide that it's time for this to be done. And a few years later, I ended up working at another comic book store, which again, I loved, and I loved not being responsible for stuff, but I also very much missed the freedom of like, oh, I want to go change this, and I could just do it. Right. And then suddenly it was like, oh, I got to talk to the assistant manager who has to talk to the store manager, who has to talk to the owner, who has to talk to the other owner. Right. Like, can we do this? And it was like, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a weird transition to have to go through. Okay, so after ScrewAttack, you did after all that ended, you went and started GameAttack with Sean Boland, and we talked a little bit about GameAttack earlier, but it felt to me like it was mostly just you guys streaming games.
Initially, it wasn't. We were positioned to be the first 6 months. We were positioned to be like this. What people forget about GameAttack in particular was. GameAttack was started under Rooster Teeth, and the first 6 months it was supposed to be positioned as this third brand, like Achievement Hunter, like Funhouse, this third gaming brand. And after we were expecting, we were trying to work with the other brands and work with the other other arms of Rooster Teeth about you would think that if you have this formula and you have these massive audiences, you'd want to use like a wrestling term, you'd want to provide a little bit of rub, right?
Yes.
And put a little shine on these things.
Yeah.
And we were just getting nowhere fast. And really, after about 3 months, we had a meeting with Matt and Bernie, and we just kind of laid it out like, hey, we can't. Nobody is working with us here. Like we're trying to grow this. This is why it makes sense for this to grow to benefit your business. And we spent an hour talking to them, and we laid it out like all business. And when we got done, I remember Bernie looking at us and Bernie looking at me in particular, goes, so you want to be famous? And I was like, did you hear anything I said? And we left that meeting. We're like, okay, we're done. Right.
Yeah.
So about 3 months later, and the way what's funny is like you start putting the pieces together like later down the line is so 3 months later my contract is up because I had a 3-year contract after the acquisition, right?
Okay.
And then they're like, hey, let's talk. So they there's a couple people on their management team. One of them went up to Dallas to go talk to Sean and several of the ScrewAttack people to fire them.
Oh.
But they wanted me to go down to Austin to talk to Ezra. So
Interesting.
So I drove down because Ezra was the guy that I dealt with for the acquisition, and he was then the president of Rooster Teeth. I think their hearts were in the right place because the idea was, look, you've worked with Ezra, you have worked with him for a while. You kind of went on this little road with him. So it'd probably be best if you talk to Ezra. So I drove 3.5 hours down to Austin to have a 5-minute conversation about him pretty much saying like, yeah, we're going to let you go because your contract's up. And so I go down there and get let go. We leave, whatever. But part of us leaving is we're allowed to take GameAttack, right? I was like, I want to take GameAttack. And they're like, okay. So we leased the brand back from them for 2 years. And then after 2 years, we would get the GameAttack name. So, I'm driving back and I'm just like steaming. I'm like, they make me drive all the way down there to fire me, and
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So in my drive back, I'm like, I'm thinking about like, okay, what's the next step? How do we move forward to this? And that's where, getting together with Sean and, really it's pretty much a call immediately. I was like, okay, who got fired? Who got fired? Who was the one? So John got let go, and Sean got let go, and I got let go, and it was one of those things where I was like, okay, so then we left, but we had this YouTube channel, we had this name, and when we streamed on GameAttack, when we were under Rooster Teeth, we saw like crazy success. I remember one day we streamed and we made $1,700, right? And I was like, whoa. So I went to my boss and I was like, look, we can stream and make half the money that we made last month on this YouTube channel, because it was just starting. I think we made like $3,500 one of the first month, right? Okay. We can make half the money in one day.
Yeah.
Right. And then we did a second stream and that made like $900, right? So we made like $2,700 in 2 days. And I was like, look, this could be amazing.
Yeah.
For this brand. And he goes, don't ever do that again. Don't ever stream. And we're like, what?
What?
What do you? He goes, no, we're not gonna stream. I don't want you streaming. I was like, do you not see the money we just made for you and your company? Right? Because we didn't see a cent of that, right? Like we didn't,
right.
We're just like, yeah, and we were just like, it was like one of those things where you just want to like slap them and be like, are you like effing like dumb? Like, or like, what is wrong with you? Wow. So when we left, that was the inspiration of streaming. Like, cause from a video perspective, you cannot make a living producing video on YouTube right now, unless you have some other forms of revenue. And that's where live streaming happened. It was like, we saw the most success from live streaming. Yeah. And that was the only way we were going to be able to make a living. Only way we're going to be able to make a living doing this. If we wanted to continue producing content, it had to be with live streaming. And okay. And that was why we did that. So now now I have a balance. Now that I'm no longer with GA, I have a balance between the two, and it's a little bit of live streaming, a little bit of podcasting, and it's all just a great time.
Yeah. So I don't know if we ever got an answer to this, and if you want to give the same, it was personal answer, that's cool. But was there any particular reason for leaving GameAttack, or was this all pandemic based, or
no? I don't know. This is going to sound really like corny, and I know this because I've heard people say this answer, and I just didn't understand it. But the reality is that like one day I woke up and I was like, I think I'm done. Like I think I'm just done doing this, and I just woke up and I knew it, and that was it. Like I just kind of woke up. I knew that I was done with GameAttack, and it was nothing against Sean. Nothing against Grayson, nothing against community. Mm-hmm. I just kind of felt like I needed to do my own thing, for the first time literally in my career. I just felt like I needed to do my own thing. And I know that sounds silly, for a lot of folks, considering like, well, you've been doing your own thing, but I really haven't been doing my own thing. I've been growing with other people, right. For the better part of, 15 years. And for me, this was just one of those things where I just needed to try something for my own. And I had this vision for this podcast I wanted to do, and, it didn't really work with GameAttack and what we were doing. And, I have some other projects that I'm working on as well. So, for me, that was really, really important. And I just wanted to give it a go and start over. And I know that's, like I said, I know that's a crazy sentiment when you have a business that's profitable, making money, everyone is happy. For the first time, like, it was the opposite of ScrewAttack, right? Like insurance was offered, people were making money, it was, we had a really good thing going. And, it was just one of those things where just kind of time for me. And I know that, like I said, I know that for a lot of people, that answer just doesn't make sense, but that's the only answer I can really provide that makes sense for me. So.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I understand that, because I've been parts of projects and I've had jobs where, I woke up in the morning and it was like, you know what? I'm done. Like this doesn't work anymore. It can work for a very long time. There can be literally no change between when you go to bed at night and when you wake up in the morning, but something internally is just, no more.
the clock struck midnight, man. You know, and that's just kind of the reality of it. You know, so. Okay,
well, I'm glad that you're in a position where you're able to just get up and walk away and start something new.
Oh, come on now. That's the scary part, is that nobody's in that position. Nobody's in that position. Especially during a global pandemic. Like, hey, let's go quit our job during a global pandemic, eh? How's that sound?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like you said, you know, there's a lot of people who know who you are. There's a lot of people that were fans of ScrewAttack and a lot of GameAttack fans that are coming back or are coming out of the woodwork or are being more vocal, or even me, right? I've messaged you on Twitter a handful of times over the last decade. Sometimes you've responded back, sometimes you haven't. It's Twitter, whatever. Like, I get it, but like, here we are, right? We're having a conversation now because you're starting something new, and I think it's cool, and I want to help support that, you know. And if I can get a couple of my listeners to go check your stuff out because they liked this conversation today, great.
Nice.
And and if not, like, hey, I tried, you know.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you help spread the word and letting people know what's going on, and letting people know about ScrewAttack. And I know it's been a while for a lot of folks, and I think it's really cool that it holds a fond place in a lot of people's hearts, and as it does mine. So it's really great.
Yeah. I have one last question, and we can totally edit this out if you want.
Whatever you want.
I mean, going all the way back to nostalgia and everything, right? I know you have talked extensively about Tom leaving ScrewAttack and that whole scenario. I don't think we need to go over that again, right? It's happened. But have you reached out to him at all during the pandemic? Or has he reached out to you, or has there been any?
No, we haven't spoken a long while. Probably 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's been a long time since we spoke. So, I mean, Tom is a dude that, we grew up, we played a lot of basketball together growing up. And I think, a lot of people they're like, oh, you guys are best friends. And I'd say we were best friends based off of proximity, right? We were always around each other. We were friends, and everybody has those friends. But I would say we weren't always friends from like the way friends should be, if that makes sense, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We were friends out of proximity. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, I hear, oh, Hugh's your best friend. And it's like, yeah, okay, all right. But with that said, Tom's moved on. I've moved on. We both turned the page, and he has a family that I've never met, and I have a family that he's never met. And honestly, at this point, I think if we were to get together, number one, it would be the same response. Like if he was to reach out to me and be like, "Hey, do you want to do something?" I'd be like, why? It's nothing like, it's nothing personal at all. It's just okay, if I was to reach out to him, I think specifically about being on the podcast, I think people would be like, he'd be like, why would you want to? What's the point? Okay. So and just knowing him the way that I did, and like I said, I say did because I don't know him anymore. It's been a long time, literally been 12 years since we worked together. So yeah, it's just kind of like we both moved on in our lives to literally entirely separate lives. So
yeah, no, and that, I mean, honestly, all of that makes sense. It's just, especially going back and watching all the old stuff on the archive page, right? Like,
sure.
From the fan perspective, it feels like Stuttering Craig and Handsome Tom are inextricably linked, right?
Sure.
It like Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth, right? Even after they got divorced, they still got put in storylines together.
Right.
Right. So yeah.
Well, I think that's great, and I think that's the wonderful thing about ScrewAttack is there are a section of people who feel Stuttering Craig and Handsome Tom are ScrewAttack. There's a section of people that feel like Craig, Ben, Nick, Chad, Destin, Corey, Jose, that's ScrewAttack. There are a section of people who feel like, Sean, Jared, Craig, there's so many different eras of ScrewAttack with so many different teams. I think that's the really unique thing about ScrewAttack that really resonates with a lot of people is there's always somebody that you could relate to.
Yeah, no, and I think that's true. My even though I was watching from, I don't know, pretty early on. I want to say it was late 2006 or early 2007 when I found you guys. But yeah, my era of ScrewAttack is definitely kind of that second one after Tom left, and it was you and Jose and Destin and Chad and Corey and that whole gang. And after a bunch of those guys kind of moved away and went on to do other stuff, like I still stayed up with everything. I still listened to Sidescrollers every week. I still watched Hard News for as long as that was going. But I will say that the day that you said that you were done with ScrewAttack, I was like, okay, well, without Craig, this is not going to be the same thing. So yeah. For me, at least, that's when I kind of stepped away. And I don't know, getting your new podcast, it's kind of like having an old friend back. So.
Well, that's really, really nice. I appreciate it. And, kind of going back to the way when we first started talking, the idea of, as I said, as long as I'm in charge of ScrewAttack, it'll be about games and fun. Right. And I was not in charge of ScrewAttack, and that shifted. So right. I would like to think that I kept my word on that. So
I would say that as long as you were able to keep your word, for me at least, it felt like you did. And it was obvious that something had changed, not immediately after the sale, but after a while. Something had changed, and I didn't know what it was because we didn't know the behind the scenes stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, something had changed, and I kind of felt myself drifting away. And I know I was going through a lot of different stuff at that point in my life, right? So I always thought it was me. But now that more has come out. Yeah, and again, listen, even though I don't necessarily agree with all the business decisions that have been made, I don't mean to speak badly. I personally don't mean to speak badly about either Rooster Teeth or Fullscreen or any of their employees or former employees in some cases.
No, exactly, and that I think that's the thing, right? Is nobody makes business decisions with the idea of screwing up a business.
Hopefully,
right?
Yeah.
All right. If you're running one, you're not trying to screw things up.
Right.
I promise you that. So, I think that's one of the things that's just kind of one of those things, it's always easy to judge from the outside until you're actually in, Right. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. So.
Yeah. Craig, did you ever hear back about the Soulja Boy challenge?
No, I never heard back from Soulja Boy about wanting to compete to play video games against me.
Okay. And for the several listeners that are not going to understand, the rapper Soulja Boy back in, what was this, like 2007, 2008, something like that?
Something around that.
Put out an open challenge to the internet to play video games against someone. And ScrewAttack, in a big bad way, tried to get his attention and responded, and he never responded back. I don't even know. Did he end up playing against some guy on MTV or something, just some random dude?
I think that was before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was before. It was just one of those things where he. I think that's what my rap was about. Was he played? I think his name was Steven Totillo, I think was his name. I think he now writes for like Forbes or something. And but it's funny because the fallout of that was, I called the Steven Totillo guy a hack. And and I remember seeing him later on. He's like, "Oh, you don't want to talk to me. I'm just a hack." And he he took it like really seriously, like really personally. I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, thanks, Steven Totillo." So. But yeah, it was funny. It was just a different time,
No, for sure. I don't know. From my point of view, right? It was never going to happen. But man, wouldn't it have been cool if it did?
Right, exactly. And I think that was kind of the idea. Is like, yeah, this is not going to happen. But
right,
what if?
Man, Craig, we're a little over time, but thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for being generous with your time,
dude.
I really appreciate it.
Super fun time. Thanks for having me, and hope everyone keeps watching. Find me on Twitch. Find me on YouTube. CraigSkitz. There you go. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this has been not Sidescrollers. Wow, what's the name of my show? This has been Atomic Monsoon. Thank you so much for listening this week, and thank you, Craig, for joining us. Super great time.
You know it.
All right, guys. Take care.